Hey, Canteeners. This is Luke coming at you from the swamp. Welcome to episode 83 of Culper's Canteen Cup. I'm sorry I missed the last episode I listened to. It was pretty good, I guess. It was about 66% as good as it usually is. So I don't know. Hopefully we can make up for that. So I've been in DC for about 3 weeks. We would talk about that a little bit. Some of the changes that we've seen over the years in this lovely city. Today I went out shopping for some swag. I got some gifts for some friends who requested some bobbleheads and whatnot. But one of the things I picked up I thought was really good. You know, every good podcast needs needs props, right? So I picked up from the America store a Donald Trump damn it doll. If you don't know what a damn it doll is, it's something you buy. It's a little doll. When you get mad, you swing it around. You damn it, damn it, damn it. So from now on, whenever we're talking about whatever Donald Trump's fault, whatever we can blame on Donald Trump, the economy, inflation, COVID, Ukraine, all that stuff. I'm gonna swing my damn it doll, and you guys be able to maybe hear it or whatnot. So you see the damn it doll on YouTube. Roger's got his nice Let's Go Brandon shirt on YouTube, and Josh has got his Bucky shirt on. Man, we're kicking it old school, kicking it live. Thanks Carlton Zeus for that intro music. Guys, I think we might do a little quiz show today, and we're going to call the quiz show, Are You a Good American? Inaugural C3, Are You a Good American show. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But first, maybe before we get into that, Josh, what's been going on since the last episode?
A lot on my end. So the kids, the big news, the big news that I'll share on the podcast for everybody is we took the kids to Disney for spring break. This was so that trip. Oh, I know. Break out the torches and pitchforks.
And you know what? Real quick to interrupt you, my neighbors, he's an avid listener, they're on their way to Disney now with their two kids.
Good Lord.
Steve, I'm just letting you know the cast here at C3 is very disappointed.
Well, I mean, they probably planned it like us, prior to Disney going full woke, and we got down there. So long and short of it, we spent a week at Disney, 4 days at Disney. We averaged about 14, 15 miles a day, in the parks. Dude, it was hot, man. That was one thing. It was like, it's not going to be terrible. March, into March in, Central Florida generally is not that bad. You generally highs in the low 70s, lows are kind of somewhere in the 50s. Now that week there was a warm front came through, and dude, it was like in the upper 80s, and dude, it was hot. And of course, so dad's got the backpack, with everybody's stuff in it and everything. So, but it was good. At the end of the day, man, the kids have fun. We, the wife and I, we have fun seeing them have fun. They're teenagers now. The last time we went was like 10 years ago. So, that's probably the last family trip we'll do to Disney. Not only because of how old they are, but I have no desire to go back to Disney while they're.
So, what was the culture like down there? I mean, with everything in the news, like, what was the general atmosphere down there?
Dude, I only saw two people, and this was in Epcot.
I mean, did Snow White have a beard or what?
No, Snow White didn't have a beard. I tell you, dude, so all of that, I didn't see anything at Disney that was, super over the top promoting, the sexual grooming or the left, the whole leftist wokest movement. There was two people, non-Disney employees, that had shirts on that on the front of them said, quote, "Say gay." Right. And that was in, opposition to, the bill that was labeled "Don't Say Gay," that DeSantis signed. And it was funny because there was multiple people walking past them. And these were people, these were, different ethnicities. I don't know where they were from. But, there was a couple that looked like they were Hispanic and possibly, and Asian walking by, and they were like, "You guys didn't read the bill, huh?" and these two very large
Exactly.
women. Yeah, exactly. And so these two and I said it as I walked by, I was like, somebody didn't read the bill. And of course, the wife's like, oh god, here we go. And but of course these two women, they looked at, like you would expect them to. They were, morbidly obese, looked like their face looked like they had to fight with a nail gun. They had, multiple piercings, some bad tattoos, multicolored hair. It's just, they look like the carnival freaks that, they set out to look like. It was like, okay, achievement unlocked. As far as like the Disney employees and stuff, dude, like that was none of that, like nothing. There was absolutely nothing from the Disney employees. Um, and even in the shops, in the little stores in the different parks, there was nothing in there. There was a couple of pins here and there that were rainbow colored, but other than that, dude, there was nothing like egregious over the top at all. Like if Disney wouldn't have been in the news, you wouldn't have known. You would have just, it would have just been another day at Disney. Saw quite a few, let's go Brandon t-shirts, and there's one guy, stopped talking to him for a minute, told him I loved it, just said clean up on aisle 46. And he had his let's go Brandon shirt on with it. So, it was like, hey man, I like
That's
love
funny.
your hat, love your shirt. Yeah.
I got to get that shirt.
Yeah.
Shirt.
And stuff. So as far as that goes, nah, man. And here's the thing with Disney employees. I was reading on I was looking on Twitter, and Jack Posobiec, did I get it right, Luke? Posobiec, there we go. He did a thing. He had a couple of Disney employees anonymously push him some stuff. There is a number of Disney employees that are not happy with Disney's current stance. They're pushing back from within the company. And a lot of it, you look at Osceola County and down around, especially on, you look at Kissimmee, which is kind of southwest side of Orlando, just on the western edge of Orlando. You start talking Osceola County and the other county right there, where the majority of the employees live. Dude, those are very red. That's a very rural red area. And so, Disney starts going all crazy. They're already complaining about pay and working conditions and working hours and stuff. They may have a problem on their hands. I did see this morning Disney's stock has gone down a little bit, enough to cost them about 26 million, 30 million bucks, which, I mean, at the end of the day, they'll make that up in 2 days, at their parks. One of the things I did see, that was really good is, dude, there were a lot of dads and moms. There was moms out there, dude, just crushing it, like absolutely crushing it. And I'm talking about, not dads our age, but I'm talking about dads probably late 20s, early 30s, dads pushing strollers, carrying bags, taking care of kids, disciplining kids, when they, appropriately, when, the kids needed it. And from the kids, man, I heard a lot of, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You always have your kids that are crying and, throwing tantrums, but saw a lot of parents, a lot of younger parents, man, they were right with them, making sure, that little Johnny and little Jill, man, that they stayed in line. And so, I watched that for a little while, and that was refreshing to see, especially from that, the younger crowd, the younger parents. Kind of gives you a glimmer of hope for the future. And going back to when our oldest daughter, years ago, when she was in 8th grade, they did their 8th grade field trip to DC, and this was the year before COVID. And dude, there was and we're talking about 8th graders. There was a number of 8th graders in her class who scooped up MAGA hats, while we're in DC, from the little street vendors and stuff and stores. And so I don't know, man, that was good to, that coupled with what I saw at Disney was, good. There's some there's some good kids out there. There's some kids who got their head on straight. So far, we just got to keep them out of public schools and out of colleges, so they don't get indoctrinated. But so yeah, man. So that's really the the big thing for us. There's some other news I kind of share with you guys that not ready for prime time yet. But no, other than that, so your neighbors, man, your neighbors, dude, they're going at a decent time. It's Disney's 50th year celebration, so everything, Disney's already over the top. With a bunch of their celebrations and stuff. This time, they're even more over the top with everything because it's their 50th. So, Steve, man, you guys should have a good time. Just dude, stay hydrated. Stay hydrated because it's hot, bro. It's hot.
Drink plenty of water and take some knees. And I think that's one, it makes me wonder when they talk about, Florida's parental rights and education bill, not they don't say gay bill because they don't mention the word one time in the bill. And we put out a couple blogs and stuff on it, but that's the big issue with a lot of this stuff. And it's not just, we'll isolate this and talk about this one, but that's the broader issue with, it goes on to the voter rights bill, Build Back Better, just all these other bills. Like nobody reads them. And, they follow, and it's dangerous, right? I mean, when you talk about misinformation, when you talk about disinformation, you don't have to try very hard. I mean, you get somebody with a blue check mark on Twitter, get on there and post whatever the tagline is going to be, and immediately you've got 81 million, Americans and probably non-Americans following, reposting, and criticizing the bill. And it's like, hey, look, I have no issues with criticizing the bill. I mean, you want to get into the the minutia of what it says and what it doesn't say, and you agree and don't and disagree or what have you. That's fine. We can have that debate all day, but don't sit there and come up with these taglines, rehash them, and you haven't even read it, and you can't even discuss it. Because I tell you the long story short, and we've, like I said, we've done a blog on it, so you can head over to culperscanteencup.com and check it out. But it's the bottom line is, hey, if your kids are K through 3, that sex education as we used to know it back in the day, that stuff won't be taught. It won't be discussed in the school at that age. And so and I tell you, there's been a little pushback, and you see it because immediately it's like in my mind, and I think on Josh's page, he posted something on his Facebook page, and this is what it comes down to for me. There is nothing you can say, do, show me. I don't care what the studies say. You just call me a nug or whatever. There's nothing out there that will convince me for you to have a sexual conversation with my K through 3 kid. I don't care what it is. And anybody who wants to do that, there are obviously some other issues there. And that's what the bill says. And it says after that, hey, because I think I was maybe 4th or 5th grade when we had the sex education, class or whatever. And, of course you get in there and they say penis and everybody giggles and, you tell jokes or whatever. And, I get it. There is probably a need for it in the public education system. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess you can debate that one way or another. To me, even at that age, I want to be the one as the parent to have that discussion with my child, not the school system, not some public administrator, not some teacher, who's 24 years old, right out of college or what have you. I mean, that's on the parent. But again, I think that's, on us also being, good parents. And we know that there are a lot out there that struggle, but there's just nothing in my mind that's going to convince me that you should have that conversation. And I'm sure you guys are the same way. I go back to when I was K through 3. So that's what, 5 through 8 years old, 5 through 9, give or take. But it's like, dude, I didn't even know what any of that stuff was. I was like playing basketball and eating dirt and fucking, chasing dragonflies, whatever the hell I was doing. And probably, trying to shoot squirrels with my BB gun. And like, I didn't know what any of that stuff was. And a lot of times I think what happens is because at that age, there's also a natural curiosity. And so, the kids, they want to know about it. Well, they learn about it because you bring it up. You bring the topic up. Did I already drop an F-bomb? Did I really? I have to go back. Man, it flows so smoothly. Like, I don't even catch it anymore. Just like, whoop. It just fires me up because it's like, that's the type of stuff. So I love Twitter because of the independent, or I shouldn't say independent. They're journalists, right? You have a lot of journalists that they work for the big companies out there, your CNNs and Fox Newses. And what I find is that following them individually, a lot of them have some good stories. Most of them don't ever make the airwaves. They don't ever make TV because they get their 30-second snip or whatever. So I like following them for up-to-date news and getting their take because it does tend to be fairly objective for the most part. But then you have this stuff with, the Florida bill, and then the left just becomes unhinged. And all you see, and I think Joe Rogan, I think I saw a quote from him today. It's like the left, I mean, it's like diarrhea up on the screen, man. That's all you see, and there's no conversation there, because when you're like, so what part of this bill do you not like? What part of this bill do you not agree with? And nobody can have that debate with you because they haven't read it, and that goes, it ties in part to Justice Brown, who, was just, or not Brown, but Ketanji Jackson, who was just confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. That was part of the issue with her in my eyes. And I'll tell you this, I didn't know anything about her prior to, nobody sits out there and tracks all these justices, right? All you do is like, hey, when an individual is brought up, you vet them, you look at your ruling, and then you make your decisions at that point. Now, you can make the argument that maybe she shouldn't have been on the DC Circuit Court. Maybe you can make the argument for some of the other positions that she was appointed to, but that's not what we're looking at now. We're looking at the U.S. Supreme Court, and that was the problem with, or the problem that we had with some of her rulings was especially with the child porn cases, right? With the leniency of that stuff, and what you're starting to see from the left is the normalizing of child porn, child sex crimes. Oh yeah, it's okay for a grown man or a grown woman. Hey, you know what? I don't need a 35-year-old dude talking to my 5-year-old daughter about her sexuality. Really don't. And I think, and I'll kick it over to Luke for his thoughts on it, but you still have a hardcore following, probably the 30% that approve of Joe Biden and the job that he's doing. But you still have a hardcore, far left element that is pushing that don't say gay agenda or whatever. But I think they kind of back themselves into the corner with it. Not really having the foresight to say, okay, what does this really say? Well, it really means that a 35-year-old grown man can talk to a 5-year-old girl about sex and her preference, her orientation, and what have you. When you look at KBJ's rulings, and again, you can look at those individually, and I think Josh and I talked about it at length. But what you've done is lighten the sentences. It's no different than like the marijuana, decriminalization of marijuana. That's the road that takes you down. At first it was, you had the 80s and, Nancy Reagan and, the war on drugs and this and that. And then it's like, well, you know what? Marijuana is not so bad. And so the sentences become reduced, and yeah, we know it's a Schedule 1, but we're going to treat it differently and how we prosecute it. Then we do light sentences. And then now it's decriminalized in the majority of the states. And I don't know it goes that far with this type of thing, because it is a little different as far as the category of crime. But in my mind, it's like, that's how you get to that point, right? You talk about that slippery slope, and at first it's like, well, okay, well, we won't do the 35-year, recommended, sentence. We'll just do the 3-month one. Okay, so you're telling me that, as long as I do it on the internet, you get the lesser sentence versus receiving it by mail or whatever. And I think that's how you get down that road. So I don't know. I'll kick it over to Luke for his thoughts on it.
Those are some good points, Roger. The "Don't Say Gay" bill. First of all, I find it fascinating that it's devolved into something, a slogan that doesn't read. Obviously, y'all both said it doesn't read "Don't Say Gay" anywhere in the bill. Now we're getting into like diverging realities here. Marketing and advertising. So this "Don't Say Gay" thing, that was a political push. Whatever political action committee is associated with the media and stuff, so they were like, okay, we need to demonize this bill as fast as possible, and let's come up with a narrative that everyone would disagree with. Everyone would, like the Black Lives Matter thing. Okay, what, you don't think Black Lives Matter? We talked about that way early in the episodes. It's like, who would disagree with that? So who would disagree with the proposition that you're not allowed to say gay at all in the public school system? It's like, well, I mean, I think that's a freedom of speech issue. Well, why can't you say gay? That's not the point. So I thought about this a lot. It's, marketing and advertising does not equal truth. Like, think about a product, for instance, like a product that's for sale. You see commercials about it, you see billboards, you'll see it pushed, on the news and things like that. They pay a lot of money to advertise and market certain products, but that's regulated. You can't currently say that Coca-Cola cures cancer. You can't, get on your commercial and say, smoking is actually good for you. There were rulings on that a long time ago. Soothes your T-zone. This brand of Coca-Cola not only tastes better, it cures AIDS. You can't do that. That's a lie. That's false advertising. There are regulations against that. There are no regulations on, a political action committee going to the media and pushing a narrative saying "don't say gay" is what this bill is all about. Even though that's false advertising, that's just what it is. And people will just glom onto that because it's too hard to open up to search the internet, to put in the Gurgle machine, the Florida bill, whatever number it was, and actually read the text itself. They'll just digest whatever's told to them on the news. And I think we all know that, and we're all preached to the choir with most of our audience. It truly is fascinating to see these things happen. And the "don't say gay" thing is only one. I mean, we could probably go around the horn and list 5 or 6 different things that have happened over, the course of the last, since we've been doing this podcast of, something, there'll be a little tagline, a little narrative, and it just absolutely does not match reality. The thing with teaching, 0 to 9-year-olds, anything about gender or sexuality, I think it's important to delineate what we mean by sexuality. I think when we're talking about sexuality, we're not talking about male or female per se. You're a boy, you're a girl. We're talking about procreation and or, the act itself for pleasure, procreation and pleasure. We're talking about sexuality, and that's the problem with this whole gender, transgender movement and everything is just totally associated with sexuality. There was an issue not too long ago with some friends and a group of people, friends and coworkers, where the kids hung out together and everything. There was an 11-year-old, female 11-year-old, who came out and told everyone in the community that she was bisexual. She was bisexual, talking about sexuality, physically attracted to males and females. I believe this girl was 11, maybe. Now, that caused a big thing within the community because there were sleepovers happening. All girl sleepovers, all boy sleepovers, things like that. It was not co-ed. So one of the mothers came to me and was like, how do I address this? Because I'm not comfortable with this girl coming over to an all girls. I'm not comfortable sending my daughter over with this girl. And I was like, well, explain that to me. Why aren't you comfortable with that? And she said, and this is when she said something really profound to me. She was like, well, she says she's bisexual. I'm not against, any gay, bisexual, LGBTQ plus. I'm not against it. But the problem is bisexuality obviously states this girl is talking about something sexual in nature, which means procreation and or pleasure. So she is attracted to other females sexually. I am not comfortable with my daughter spending the night with anyone who is attracted to her sexually at that age or any age until she's out on her own. I cannot bless off on that. I think that was a pretty profound statement. I was like, holy cow, yeah, that's right. That should have occurred to me a long time ago. We're talking about sexuality being attracted to, someone of the opposite sex, which every study I've looked at, and thanks Ben Shapiro for this. I've been listening to more Ben Shapiro lately, directed me to a number of studies that have been done on sexuality as in procreation and or pleasure. That doesn't even begin to manifest in pretty much all cases until the onset of puberty. So, yeah, I have no problem with the Florida bill. No problem whatsoever. I remember I started 3rd grade back in Texas way back in the day, and it was a big deal that our teacher, Mrs. Levada Reed, opened each class. She basically said, you know what? We're not allowed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to begin the class with a prayer, and anybody who doesn't want to do it can step outside. She was real nice about it. But that was even in 3rd grade, we knew I was all for it. Because I was like, finally, all right, but that was a big deal. And that caused a lot of consternation, like back in the 80s, like the early 80s. So, and now we have, just 4 short decades later, we've come to a totally different, bizarro world place. And it really is disheartening for me that we're even talking about these things. And I could go on and on. I had a long discussion about this last night with a colleague of mine. He had some good points. But Josh, I'm gonna kick it to you, and then you can either kick it back to me or to Roger. But if you guys want to get started on Are You a Good American, we can do that right now if you want. I can intro the game, or if you guys want to go around the horn and talk about more current events. It's up to you. It's your world, man. It's Burger King for you today, buddy.
I love it. Yeah, I got one more, kind of one more spill on the whole don't say gay thing and what's going on in the schools. A lot of folks, it's the whole thing. It's like Roger said. I don't want anybody talking to my kids about sex unless it is, a curriculum set in, sex education, as in here is your anatomy and this is how it works, right? That's fine. That's curriculum. And nowadays, like, our kids have already had that class. We had to sign permission slips for them to even take that class. Right? I've got no problem with that. What I do have a problem with is, first when they came out and they were like, don't say gay, it was people, first it was, well, that's not even part of the approved curriculum anyway. You guys are worried about, them talking about sexuality and, transgender, and why does little Timmy have two dads or two moms or whatever the case may be, right? That's not even a problem. It's not even happening. So this bill's, for nothing. And, yep, that's the shirt. The, and so it's like, okay, well, then if it's not happening, then you shouldn't be upset that, they're just codifying it into law, to make sure it doesn't happen. Right. Because why do we have laws? And, then, and I've been posting a lot on my personal Facebook page, because this is like, I think this is the final step, as a society, before the collapse is when we normalize, pedophilia. I think that's the final. I think that's the final moral collapse. I think that's when Jesus is finally going to be like, okay, you guys made it, this long. It's time for me to go ahead and come on back and the rapture to begin.
Jesus is going to say, Dad, bring out the horsemen.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Open the barn and let the horsemen out, because it's time. I can't think of a more deplorable thing. So I've been posting a lot on, my personal Facebook page on it. And there are now, first it was, I had a couple people comment like, well, that's just right-wing talking points. It's not really happening. And now, there are multiple instances in multiple states, coming out showing preschool teachers, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, all the way up through high school, of teachers that once that classroom door closes, they are teaching what they want to, and they are saying what they want to. You had a preschool teacher walking around handing out rainbow bracelets, and then another teacher, and I believe this was in Kansas, who has a closet in his classroom that kids can come in, and then he has a selection of clothes in there that are inappropriate, that any good parent wouldn't let their kid out of the house wearing. They can show up to school, go in the closet, and change into their club clothes, and then before they go home, they get to change back into whatever they showed up in school that day. That way mom and dad are none the wiser. And you're thinking to yourself, like, how does this happen? How did we get here to this point? Like you said, in 40 years, for a cultural change, for something to shift that hard, 40 years is a very short amount of time when you look at other cultural changes that have occurred. Cultural changes, we're talking about, even defining words, that generally happens over hundreds of years. This happened in a very short 40 years. And so we could talk about all the variables of why, but I believe a large part of it is, one, we didn't allow prayer in schools. We took God out of schools. And that's, whatever God you want to believe in. It doesn't even have to be Christianity. And then the other part of that is Republicans. I think Republicans have spent, and we talked about it before, Republicans have spent especially the last 20 years, thinking that they're in some gentleman's duel and they're in a back alley knife fight. And they haven't realized that yet. They're still trying to, we're going to take the moral high ground on this. Well, you know what? All of those kids, 20 years ago, that you were just like, it's just a phase. They'll get over it. They'll get through it. Well, all of those kids are teaching now, and they're teaching your kids. And when you send your kids to school for 8 hours a day, that's what little Johnny's learning. And it's not good. I'm telling you, man, this is absolutely the moral decay that's going to hasten the collapse. But the good thing is that I don't know if you guys saw, some of the Wisconsin local elections, school board. In fact, the Kenosha school board, they flipped 3 very, very blue seats on the school board, and it went straight red. And starting to see some of that in other places around the country as well. I mean, even in California, they did a recall. I forget what where it was in California. They recalled 2 of their school board
I think it was
members.
San
It was
Francisco. I
yeah,
think it was
oh yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
like
It
San
was in the Bay
Francisco.
Area. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, dude, is absolutely crazy. I think the left, the far left, I think they have completely messed up by screwing with the kids at this, because that's one thing. A lot of us, we can disagree, on things politically. We can disagree on things ideologically, but generally speaking, most people are very protective of their kids. And, hopefully that's hopefully this is the spark that needs the Republicans to get off their ass and actually go on the offense. And if they're not campaigning on this, for the midterms in 2024, they're absolutely crazy. That and CRT in schools. Oh, it's not being taught. Well, then you won't be up. Why are you upset with us banning it from being taught in schools? Well, you know that we go down the road, the inflation and everything else. And for those of you out there, and there's a couple people on my timeline that that jumped in and was like, well, we should be able to talk about this in schools. And again, like Roger said, there's zero reason to talk about sexuality with kindergartners to third graders. Zero, none whatsoever. That is a question. The teacher looks straight at the kid and says, you need to talk to your parents. You need to ask your parents. Because what happens if you have someone, let's say, of a religious faith who does not condone 2 boys, right? You're going to tell that kid that your parents are wrong religiously? You're going to question that kid's religious faith? Are we doing that now? Go talk to your parents. Why? Because it's a parent's responsibility. And that's a parent's job. It's not anybody else's job. You teach my kid reading, writing, and arithmetic. I'll take care of the rest. And with this Common Core bullshit, I have to wind up reteaching that stuff anyway. Well, at least the reading and writing. I can't do math for shit. After 5th grade, man, I can't help you with your math homework. So
but it's such a bullshit response, right? And that's the thing. Like, and Jen Psaki was a whole nother topic that I had on here, because when she's asked and she's pressed, about Florida's bill or anything else, it's like, well, can you name one school that that is teaching that? So they're completely dismissive of it, and it's like, well, okay, you know what? I can pull up 100 of them, but you know what? They'll never give her the pushback. Yeah, here, just pull up Twitter at any given point. There are 1,000 teachers on here. Oh, I can't teach my profession if I can't talk to kids. About and then the one guy's like, my kids. One, they're not your kids. Okay, it's my kid. It's my child. You have a profession, you have a job to do, and like you said, teach them how to read, write, and and do some arithmetic or whatever. But they're just completely dismissive of everything, and it's like you said, you go down that road, and I hope that the GOP, and we've been talking about this over the last couple of days, like, you need to go on the offensive. And hopefully I'm not giving them too much credit, because I'm thinking, well, if you go too hard right now, you end up with election fatigue. People become desensitized to it. The information, it just doesn't hit as hard as if you do it end of summer, beginning of fall, right? People right now looking forward to spring break. They're going into summer break, school year's ending. And then, you get to that August, September time frame right before your midterms. And that's when people kind of go back to work. They get hot and heavy and start to catch up on what's going on in the nation. But you hope that the GOP, they need to confront them with it. And I'm surprised that you don't see more of it, especially in the social media area, where you have a lot of these famous journalists that come out. It's like, hey, let's get on there. Let's talk about, let's talk about this quote unquote, don't say gay bill in Florida. Let's have that discussion. I want you to defend it. They don't, right? They just say, oh, well, you're anti, trans, you're anti-gay, you're anti whatever it is. It's like, no, not at all. It's no different than with any of the other bills that are out there. The voting rights thing. Oh, you just don't want black people to vote. Da 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 da. Really? So you're saying black people can't vote right now? Show me one area that says a minority can't vote, or where it's difficult for a minor. Because you know what? I see a whole lot of Americans out there of every ethnicity and every color at the Home Depot and at the Walmart and at the shopping malls. And I understand that there is a percentage that you have to accommodate to because of disabilities or whatever. And I think we have processes in place to accommodate those individuals. I have yet, and I know I haven't run into all 328 million Americans and those that can vote, roughly 180 million. I have yet to run into one person in my 46 some odd years of life say, you know what? They didn't allow me to vote. I couldn't vote, unless they were a felon, which, I probably have a couple of those in the family. But, other than that, I've yet to run into one. But, nobody presses them hard on the issue. And to me, like for the GOP, it's like you said, hey, man, we're not in a gentleman's fight anymore. Like, and I'm not saying you have to sling mud, but it's time to be direct. So at what point do you think it's okay for that 35-year-old man, that 40-year-old man to talk to my 5-year-old about sex? Do you agree with that? Have you read the bill? What part of the bill do you not like?
I say first off, if you have a male kindergarten teacher, that's your first indicator right there.
Yeah.
Go ahead and throw that out there.
Whatever. Hey, man, they could teach you you know what, you go to whatever profession you want. But my point is, it is time to start being direct, and it's time to start calling people out. So, when you look at KBJ and her confirmation thing, obviously Lindsey Graham and a lot of folks, voted no and had some issues with some of her past rulings. And those that came out to defend her, that's fine, defend her. So, you know what, as opposed to making it about the person, let's look at each individual ruling. Hey, what part of this ruling do you defend? What part of this sentencing do you defend? What part of the 3 months for the child porn do you defend? And why do you defend it? You have to be very pointed about that stuff. But what scares me a lot about this, and I know this is going off into a tangent, and I'll kick it to Luke so we can start a quiz show here. But it's like right now you're starting to see the Hunter laptop story come back up, right? And mark my words on this thing. I'm telling you, this is going to happen. One, I think it's the left that's throwing the Hunter Biden laptop story out there. I mean, this thing's been out there forever. I think it's the left that's starting to spin this thing back up. I don't know where it goes, but I think it's clear that Biden can't be the transition president that he said he was going to be, because Kamala is a freaking train wreck. I mean, dude, when you heard what he said during the I think they were out in front of the White House with KBJ or whatever, like, there were 45 seconds when he was talking about being at the foot of, Kilimanjaro with Xi Jinping, and like, what are you talking? We'll have to post that clip up there, because like that 30-second clip, I have no clue what he's talking about. He's like, there's one thing about Americans, and when I was at the foot of Kilimanjaro with Xi Jinping, well, that was my 17,000 miles. I can't verify. I'm like, what did this dude just say? Like, everybody's like, what the hell are you talking about? But I think they see that. But Josh keeps bringing up, rightfully, it's like, well, now you have another problem, because what do you do with Kamala? Do you just open her up to the general primaries and just say, hey, it is what it is, and the DNC is just not going to back her or whatever? But anyway, going back to my point, I hope the right goes on the offensive, and I hope the right is, you can't sling mud, as opposed, you can attack character and this and that or what have you, but I'd much rather there's enough substance on the issues that I think that they can win on. And so you have to press people on the issues, on the specific issues, and not about, what somebody did as a defense attorney or this and that. Hey, let's look at the individual ruling. Let's look at your individual voting record. Let's look at the individual bills. This is, and it's very simple, man. I mean, they got all these charts and everything's like, hey, you can just put 5 bullets up there. Boom. Which one of these 5 bullets do you disagree with and why? But they won't do it. Same thing with the Hunter Biden laptop. And this was my point with this. This is what scares me is this is going to come up in the news. The right is going to push for a special counsel. How long do special counsels take? Years. This will blow right through the midterms. And you know why? Because the right is just as guilty. The right is just as guilty of all this stuff. They get on there and they get in front of the cameras and they talk about, oh, you influence, and you got your son a job and this and that and how much money. You know what? The right is just as guilty. You can't tell me that the Democrats are the only guilty ones. They're the only ones that subscribe to cronyism, and they're the only ones that subscribe to nepotism, and they're the only ones that got their kids jobs that pay $1 million a year. That ain't happening, right? It's the right as well, and it's the independents as well. And nobody wants to pull that thread, because you pull it too much, well, then you find out that it crosses party lines. So it's easier just to get up there in front of the camera and and sit there and say, oh, we need to go after this and that and this. They're going to appoint a special counsel. It will take six months to get that thing off the ground, and it'll run for 2 years. All you, Luke. I know you're like chomping at the bit.
I'm not really. So, first of all, obviously, I think the audience realizes that Roger can say Democrats, Roger can say independents, but Roger will not say Republicans. He says
Didn't I just say the right?
Problem. You said the right. You didn't say Republicans, though.
Okay,
you didn't say Republicans.
Okay, there we go, Jen Psaki. There we go. Good job, Jen Psaki. Can you name one school? I just said Republicans.
Say Republicans. Don't say right.
Republicans.
Because I really think that I think there's a difference between a person that's on the right, like the three of us, and a Republican.
F-bomb.
Lindsey Graham, Republican. We could go down the list, but I don't know. I'm nitpicking at you, man. I know what you're saying. I get it, but dude, I'm with you 100%. I just thought I'd pick on you a little bit. So we're not going to go into the quiz just yet. I'm going to give each of you guys 2 minutes. Okay, 2 topics, 2 minutes to address it real quick. Okay, first topic: Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. Okay, when I initially saw that, I thought it was hilarious. And I even made a post on Facebook, got a lot of, flow back on that, because obviously a lot of people out there follow Hollywood and all this stuff a lot more than I do. I met Will Smith and just shook his hand in Budapest a few years ago, and he was real gracious to me and my wife. And I whatever. I don't know what's going on in his personal life. He just seemed like a nice guy. And, I put myself in a situation where I have millions and millions and millions of dollars, a powerful man in Hollywood, whatever. I don't give a F about anything. And somebody insults my wife in front of the world, I'd come up there and slap his face too. But the more I read about it, it's like, man, that poor guy is absolutely miserable with that chore of a woman he's married to. She released a video like 2 days ago where she just recorded him straight out, and it was one of the most painful things I saw. Will Smith, 6'4", 210 pounds of muscle, is scared to death of that little woman because she is messing with his head. It's brutal. Josh is sitting there. Josh said I'm losing my mind. I am, but not as much as Will Smith. I feel sorry for that dude. I know. I don't know what exactly.
No.
I don't know what exactly led him. I pity him. How about that? I don't know what exactly led him to get up on that stage and slap Chris Rock, but it wasn't defending his wife. That wasn't it. I think it's a pathetic situation he's in. He should walk away. It's really bad. So that's number one. I want Josh 1 minute on that. Another minute. I'm going to keep you to this too, Josh, because you'll talk for 10 minutes on both of these things, 20-minute segment. So Will Smith, number one. And number two, the 2 video clips of Joe Biden and Obama the other day. Roger touched on it. But when Joe Biden is chasing Obama around like an old dog trying to get a treat from his master, and Joe Biden had his hand on Barack Obama's shoulder saying, Barack, Barack, and Obama was completely ignoring him. In my opinion, that is one of the most shameful, disgusting things I have ever seen with respect to the office of the president. Like or hate Joe Biden, that was a really, really crappy thing that Barack Obama did. And if you think for a second Barack Obama didn't know exactly what he was doing, flexing all over the place and making himself, feel better and showing the world in his mind who's really in charge, who's really the man, that's what he was doing. And it was disgusting. I was sick. I felt sick about it. And I don't like Joe Biden at all. Let's go Brandon, man. But so Josh, 1 minute on Will Smith, 1 minute on Biden and Obama.
So the Will Smith thing, I obviously didn't watch the Oscars. Heard about it the next day. People were on the Twitter machine talking about it, and it was like, okay, what was said, what happened? Went back, heard Chris Rock's joke, and then saw Will Smith go up there and smack him. So 2 things on it. One, I think it was planned. I think it was staged. Because you see Chris Rock Chris Rock puts his hands behind his back and he leans into it, right? And then as Will Smith turns, he's got this smile on his face. I think it was staged, and then Pfizer's putting on the market a product for alopecia, a week later. Yeah. All right, man, whatever. That and the Oscars, they're 50% viewership, than they were before. You're right. Yeah. They wanted Zelensky and he got Zelensky. I think that whole thing was staged. So if you look at it from that perspective, the other perspective, so let's say it wasn't. So whatever, you're going to get up there and defend your wife, and I'm not, kink shame or whatever, but you're going to get up there and defend your wife, the same wife that's going to turn around, when you guys get home, she's getting in a separate limo with another dude because you guys have that kind of relationship. So that would be like Jack Murphy, getting upset on Twitter and being like, he disrespected my wife when I let my wife go over there and bang him. Right? I mean, that it just whatever, dude. Don't ever give me that. And people were standing up for Will Smith and this and that. And man, he's defending his wife. He's defending his wife. That's what a good man's supposed to do. Yeah. Okay. And then, now he's banned from the Oscars for 10 years and he can't go, which is fine. Jada's going to take one of her other husbands with her next year. So she's still going, she'll have a boyfriend for every year. And, Will be sitting at home waiting for her to get back like a good, like a good sub is. I saw that video of Will Smith, that she put out there on him. Dude, you want to talk about, I've seen people who have been broken before. If you remember Theon from Game of Thrones, when he gets broken, like, dude, this man is more broken than Theon in Game of Thrones. I mean, that is a broken ass man, and it was sad to see. But he's also one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. He could get out of that if he wanted to. So whatever. The videos, dude. The video of Biden and Obama at the White House event. Holy smokes! So the first one you see, Joe Biden, he turns around, he starts walking away, and then there's nobody there, and he puts his arms up. He's like, "Oh, where'd everybody go?" And he turns around, and everybody is gathered around Barack. It is absolutely. That video was so bad. And you're right. He knew what he was doing, but all I could think about when I saw that video, I didn't feel sorry for Biden. I just kept thinking that this guy got the more votes than any other presidential candidate in history. 81 million. 81 million votes. That's what that translated to. Bullshit. That's what I got to say on
that. So Will Smith, one, I don't really care. Like Josh said, I mean, the guy's a millionaire. He's got a million different exits out of that whole situation, what's going on or whatever. I do disagree with Luke because I guess you never take your wife to any comedy shows or anything, because that's what they do. That's what comedians do. You're in that show, and you would also have enough sense that if you were truly offended by it, you'd be like, you know what, I will handle this here in 45 minutes when we're out here at the back of the after party, and then we'll have that man-to-man discussion outside. That's what Luke would do. And that's what any of us would do. I think any of us would do that. You're not going to walk up on stage in national television and it wasn't even, I mean, I didn't have a problem with the joke. It wasn't overly funny, and I don't think it was overly offensive. I don't think it was offensive at all. It's like making fun of me with no head, it's like, whatever, man, or no hair. So, I don't think, we're not talking about that he went up there and slapped his wife or something like that. That's different. He's a comedian. He makes edgy jokes. That's what he does. That's what they do at comedy shows. You go to a place like that, expect some of the ribbing and the poking and the joking or whatever. Yeah, Josh, like, Will Smith has never been to a Dave Chappelle show. Yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen. And he also did it because it was Chris Rock up on that stage. Because anybody else, I didn't get into the whole, was it staged or whatever. I mean, I think it looked genuine because I think Chris Rock was shocked. I mean, it's kind of like one of those, you go home like, man, I should have beat his ass. Like, I don't think he thought Will Smith was going to go up there and slap the shit out of him. He's like, he's going to come up and rib me or whatever he's going to do. But he came up like, did he just hit me? Like, he probably didn't even feel it because, like, did he just like really slap me? But what's crazy is how the left comes out and they defend it again. The people that are anti-violence and, acceptance and inclusion and this and that. It's like, you just had one black man go up on stage and slap another black man, and everybody's defending Will Smith. And yeah, you were talking about the slap. Like, I thought it was a punch. Like, if it was a punch, like I expected a punch. Like, you're offended, you go up and you hit somebody. Like, he went up there and literally slapped him. And then I tell you, watching I've seen some of the clips. I try not to get it too much into it because there's a lot of context around it or whatever. But, I agree with Josh. You see a truly broken man or a broken individual, and it's and again, it's a snippet, right? So you never see everything else. It's just weird because people react different to stuff like that. I think my natural reaction, I think most of ours, us three knowing us, and I think a lot of our listeners is, I think I would get pissed off for a long time before I get to that point. There would be a whole lot of anger coming out, and it's you don't know I don't know the history of Will Smith and his background and this and that, and don't really care, but it's I guess they came out and they suspended him for 10 years or whatever. You know what? Nobody cares because I guess that took the news away from the war in Ukraine that's still going on, right? Like Luke, he should be happy to know that they're actually using his words now. This is going to be a very protracted war in Ukraine. That was from General Milley. When you talk about the Biden Obama thing, it's crazy because Rolling Stone came out and they accused Fox News of taking this out of context, the video clip, right? And I'm like, well, you know what? I actually watched it on C-SPAN, and nope, that was pretty much it. I did want to replay this thing for you real quick. It's a 17-second clip, so hopefully you can hear this. This is the actual quote from the KBJ announcement the other day, and then I'll kick it back over to Luke. So hold on.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. I actually traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president. I don't know that for a fact.
Dude, you cannot make this stuff up. And then you've got Kamala sitting there with KBJ like, what? Like, am I meeting Xi Jinping or what's the what's the deal here? It's like, yeah, this is awkward as heck. So, I think with the takeaway I took from the Biden Obama piece is it goes back to what we were saying from the beginning. It's very clear that Biden's just not running the show. And at first I was hoping that there was a person behind the curtain. We called it from the beginning, or at least I thought so from the beginning, that it was going to be Kamala behind the curtain, right? She's the one pulling the strings and this and that. It's pretty clear that's not happening. So, the next conclusion that I've reached is like, nobody's running the show. Everybody's just doing what they want. There's some like broad, overarching, loose, gray policy that we're just, we're going to let a bunch of people in and let a bunch of illegals, vote and this and that. But other than that, there is no guidance and nobody's in charge. And I think when you see that video clip, that's very clear to me that nobody's in charge. Barry thinks he's still in charge, and he might well be. He might well be. So anyway, I'll kick it back over to you, Luke.
No, folks, your clocks are not malfunctioning. Roger and Josh just don't know that 2 minutes means 120 seconds. So there you go on that. And to answer Josh's question, what kind of dude slaps another dude? It's obviously been too long since Josh has been to SEER school. So we will continue. So over halfway into the show, we'll start with our main point of the show, which is the inaugural Culper's Canteen Cup, Are You a Good American quiz show. So what we're going to do is kind of kick this around. I picked up some cards today from the America shop. One is called, if you're looking at the YouTube here, it's called, Can You Pass the Citizenship Test? And it's a whole box of citizenship quiz questions. They don't ask every single one of these on the citizenship test. They change them around, but some of them are easy and some of them are not so easy. The other one, guys, I was looking at this while y'all were droning on. I was trying to ignore what you were saying. It's the U.S. Constitution quiz deck. I was looking through some of these. We might have to do another episode on that because those are not easy at all.
Let's provide some context. Luke doesn't want to go down that road because we'll stop at the Second Amendment and it'll never go any farther.
There's only one question that even touches on the Second Amendment.
And that's all we need is one question.
I have one question.
It's not even that good.
I have one question.
So we're gonna start this before we're gonna start this. Let's not do that. Let's go with the plan. Man, Josh, trying to derail the show. So
I'm actually curious to see what Josh's question was.
What's your question, Josh?
No. We'll shelve that for the Constitution one.
Yeah, I have one question about the Second Amendment. No, go ahead. Let's go ahead and ask it.
No, go ahead. Let's go because this is going to derail everything. We'll save it for the Constitution. And
yes, Josh, you can own a tank. You can own a tank. You can own an anti-aircraft missile. You can own a javelin. Whatever you want. There's your answer.
It wasn't.
Is that a question?
It wasn't
Does
going to
that
be
answer
my
your
question.
question?
No, but it's good. Go ahead.
Okay. Well. All right. So just for that, Josh, I'm gonna kick it to Roger. No. Okay. So I was thinking I could ask the question, right? You can give your answer, Roger. Josh can agree or disagree with you, and then kick it back to me, and I'll tell you whether you're right or wrong. This first one's pretty easy, though.
Oh,
So,
this sounds like a lot of fun.
Sounds
other
good.
than slavery, and you can give your thoughts on it too. So, other than slavery, name one problem that led to the Civil War.
Representation in government.
Okay,
Right.
explain
I'll
yourself.
expound on that. So basically, you had the North and the South, and obviously, your representation in government is based off the population of your individual states. And and I guess I cross the line here because it's indirectly related to slavery. A lot of that was, how the South wanted. They basically wanted both ways, right? So they wanted slaves to count when it came to population for representation, but didn't want slaves to count right, the Three-Fifths Compromise. They didn't want slaves to count when it came for everything else, and taxation and property and personal rights and this and that. Whereas the North, everybody thought was just purely anti-slavery. They're like, no, they don't need to count, or yes, they do need to count. So both of them just kind of wanted it, back and forth. So outside of slavery directly, it was more about the representation of the South in the federal government, because at the time, and even now, you could say that they didn't have the same population base. So obviously, as everybody knows how our government's run right now, you feel like, oh, my voice is not necessarily being heard at the federal level.
Josh, you agree? Disagree?
Yeah, in general, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of it had to do with the tariffs on imported goods.
Well, he didn't say the main reason. He just said name another reason.
Right. There were the citizenship quiz here. You're right, Roger. It lists three, and it doesn't say other than slavery. It says name one problem that led to the Civil War. There are three that are listed that kind of are overarching. Number one, slavery. Number two, economic reasons, which Josh touched on, the tariffs, things like that. The North was more industrialized. The South was, basically agriculture, and that tied into slavery as well. And Roger, you were hitting it, states' rights, and all three of those kind of go together. They kind of all three played on each other. So good job, guys. Y'all are good Americans so far.
Am I an
Now,
American now? Can I vote now? You know what?
they're
See, I
voting.
get it. I
Not
get
quite
it.
yet.
No, I get this. I get it. I'm just starting to figure out what's going on here now. So Luke is being very passive about this because, I'm the minority that wasn't born in this country. So, he's got to validate that I am, qualified to be an American citizen and can go out there and vote. I get it. I got it.
He figured out my gambit.
I got
Damn it. Well, go ahead and go anyway. Okay. So, Josh, to you, what is one reason, not the reason, what is one reason colonists came to America?
Freedom from religion.
Anything else?
Well, let's see. Possibilities. Possibilities. Isn't that what Joe Biden told Xi Jinping in the foothills of the Himalayas?
There are a ton of reasons. I was just wondering if you could think of any others besides religious freedom.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. A new start, new opportunities. So freedom from religious persecution. Chance at no less taxes and stuff. So yeah.
Roger, anything to add?
No, I think it's a lot of what Josh said. You always read the history books and they talk about religious freedom. And I think there is and it's not necessarily an American characteristic, but you have a certain group of folks that, hey man, I just want to be able to do my thing. I want my own personal freedoms, right? Whether it be religious or freedom of speech or live the way I want to or whatever. And you have those group of people, and they finally said, "F it, I'm getting on a boat and I'm going somewhere where I can do my own thing and live my own life." And so that, obviously encompasses all of that. But I think that is the defining reason why a group of folks came over and said, "Man, I'm done with this stuff. I'm doing my thing." That's kind of why I moved out to Arizona, right? I want to get away from the DC thing and just come out here and do my thing. And now they're screwing me here, and I'm about to move to like Wyoming or something. I don't know.
He's going to be Roger's about to become another pilgrim. I love it.
Yeah.
So So the answers, this one kind of ties into the last one a little bit as far as how all these things play off each other. The answers are freedom, political liberty, religious freedom, economic opportunity, practice their religion, and escape persecution. Now, this is why one of the reasons I'm just in awe of the founding fathers and in our Constitution. It really, it's a real bugaboo of mine when people say religion has caused more wars in history than any other, than any other cause. That's not entirely accurate. It's when religion is hand in hand with politics. It's when religion is taking over politics and vice versa. That's what causes wars. And, big thing with our Constitution was it separated those two. So people didn't have religious freedom, but that was all politics back then. The Reformation, like Josh said. I mean, so all of those kind of play off each other because religion back then was so intertwined with political power. So far, 2 questions down, and both of y'all are great Americans. Now, here we go. This is a good one. Josh, under our Constitution, some powers belong to the states. What is one power of the states?
One power of the states. Voting laws.
Okay. Anything else?
No, you asked me for one power of the states, so there it is.
Okay. There's one. Roger?
Now he took my answer. That was the big one. Is voting laws. They're able to regulate even at a federal level, like when it comes down to choosing successors to the Senate and this and that. I mean, every state can pretty much have their own own process. But I'll say in a broader sense, it's everything that's not listed in the Constitution is reserved for to the states. So everything that is not listed as part of the amendments, that's not listed in the 7 articles, is reserved for the states.
Yes,
exactly.
That would be the Fifth Amendment if that comes up again.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, you guys are right. I think Roger hit it on the head with whatever's not in the Constitution enumerated and all that. But I think that these questions are the ones that, like the or not multiple choice, but whatever. I don't think it's limited to just these answers, but these are the answers that they have: provide schooling and education, provide protection, police, provide safety, fire departments, give a driver's license, approve zoning and land use. So, and Josh had typed in there, provide schooling and education.
Which, if you look at a lot of the movements from the left and the Democrats, what are they doing? They want to federalize voting. They want to federalize the education system. They want to federalize everything. And it's like, no, actually, it was very specific. And like Josh mentioned with the 10th Amendment, it's very specific that no, those weren't meant to be federalized. Those were meant to be at the local level.
Exactly. And before you ask your next question, Luke, real quick, the Department of Education is a great example. No one can name one academic metric that has gone up since the establishment of the Department of Education. Not one academic metric has improved.
It's a good point, man. Department of Education, one of the most useless. I mean, that would be first on the chopping block for me, man. Get rid of that one.
Then the ATF and FBI.
We'll do 2 more questions here. First one, and this one was interesting for me to read or to find out. But what is one promise? I'll go to Roger on this one. What is one promise you make when you become a U.S. citizen? This is an important one for Roger.
I don't remember reading this somewhere. I think I remember this as a 5th or 6th grader going through civics class. And it's like, you have to be an informed citizen. I think that's actually, I'm trying to remember where that came from. But, you have to be an informed citizen, and you have to, well, I shouldn't say you have to, because, I mean, really, you don't have to do anything, man. You don't really make any promises anymore. I mean, I that was the big thing I remember growing up was being, you take your oath or whatever. But I'm just saying, my point is, it's the, you want to say become involved. And I just remember growing up, it was always hey, you need to be involved. You need to be an informed citizen. And I think that actually is codified somewhere. I have to look that up.
Josh?
Wrong. You're fired in my best Trump voice. No, so you can't be a U.S. citizen anymore, Roger. The one thing that you promise when you take the oath to become an American citizen is you pledge your allegiance to the country, and you don't have any, you promise not to have any other allegiance to any other country.
So this is
What
why
was the question you read? Read the question again. Maybe I misheard the question.
okay. The
Okay,
question is, what is
Pisaki.
what? Oh, geez. What is one promise you make when you become a U.S. citizen?
Okay, because he was saying when you take the oath, and I was looking at the overall, like I'm a U.S. citizen. But if you want to
Oh,
break
I
it down
got
to the
you.
specific, yeah, I didn't hear the oath part, or
Yeah.
didn't
Well,
connect those two. So according
when you
to
become,
cyber civics, it's obeying the law, paying taxes.
okay. Okay, you're doing my job for me now. Okay.
Well, no,
go ahead.
I'm just paying taxes. That's your duty as an American citizen is to pay taxes, serving on the jury, and registering with the Selective Service. But anyway,
But it's not something you promise to do when you become an American citizen.
well, I was actually
It's
looking at
not-
responsibilities, and it is here staying informed. Citizens
Hey,
have the
Luke,
responsibility to stay informed of the issues affecting their communities as well as national and international issues, and to be active in the civic processes.
Okay, Luke.
Okay, maybe
Luke
we
knew
should.
This. You knew this was going to happen because you have 2 5-year-olds here with Roger
Well,
and I. So read the answer.
maybe we should.
Maybe we should do the Constitution one.
Maybe we should contact the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service and say that their test is all messed up because, yeah, I mean, this implies that you're talking about the oath, I believe, because this is a test that prospective citizens have to take. So they have to read their oath before they do it. And I think that's what is the heart of this question is, hey, what's in the oath? And this is what's in the oath. Give up loyalty to other countries, defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States, obey the laws of the United States, serve in the U.S. military if needed, do important work for the nation if needed, be loyal to the United States. Now, this is one of the reasons I think all three of us would agree.
What's the first
people,
one? Read the first one. What was the first answer?
Give up loyalty to other countries.
Which is bullshit because you can have dual citizenship.
Oh, my God.
Right?
But you still have to swear the oath. Why don't you look up the oath there?
I'm saying, though, is that first answer is factually incorrect. Can you hold can you have two citizens or dual citizenship?
Do you have dual citizenship?
The U.S.
Do you have allegiance with another country?
I can't believe we're arguing about this. According to the United States, I don't think recognizes dual citizenship. You can have it, but it doesn't recognize dual citizenship. It doesn't. I mean, you can fact check me on that, but last I checked, I mean, you can have it. You have the right to have dual citizenship, but the U.S. does not recognize. Once you are a citizen, they don't recognize that you have dual citizenship. Anyway,
try and go get a TSSCI with dual citizenship.
What does that have to do with being a citizen? You can be a citizen, not have a TSSCI. Don't be stupid, 5-year-old.
That's true.
Joking. Look, I think we all three could agree that anyone who takes the oath seriously, anybody who becomes a citizen, takes that oath, they have taken it a step further than any American who was born in this country. Because anyone who is born in this country and is just a citizen automatically, they take no oath. So I respect someone who takes the oath and takes it seriously.
That's a fact. And by the birthright citizenship, 14th Amendment.
So prior to 1967, dual citizenship was not permitted in the U.S. Under current U.S. law, American citizens can hold dual nationality with another country. So they're wrong.
Next question.
Okay, so what is it? Why don't you look up what the oath says?
I'm talking about the first answer. No, my answer was correct. I'm talking about the first answer to, and it's not your fault. I'm saying, what was the first answer? Read that again. Read the first answer again.
Give up loyalty to other countries.
So
you're saying it's the same. You're saying if you hold dual citizenship, you automatically have loyalty to another country. This is just semantics. This is a dumb lawyer argument. Look up the oath and see what it says.
I don't have to. Based on
I trust my cards. I trust my cards I got in the America shop. I'm standing by these cards.
See, this is what we're
They sell Joe Biden bobbleheads in there. It has to be accurate.
Oh man, I need a Joe Biden bobblehead.
This is the last question with the citizenship, and then we'll touch on these constitutional ones because man, these are no joke. Okay. And this is what I would encourage the audience to. I hope the audience has been participating in this, just getting as worked up as we are. But ask yourself this: can you name one of your state's U.S. senators, one of your U.S. representatives? No, not one of your U.S. representative, the governor of your state. That's an easy one, and the capital of your state. I would say a lot of people couldn't name their U.S. representative. What about you, Josh? Do you know all four of those? You don't have to name them, but do you know them?
Yeah. So our governor's Roy Cooper. Raleigh is the capital. If you want to learn, the easiest way to learn capitals for kids, there's a YouTube song that runs through all the states and all the capitals. It's pretty it's pretty easy. As far as my representative from my district, the name escapes me right now.
I bet Roger knows his.
You know what? The only reason I know mine is because he's on Fox News all the time. Andy Biggs. He's all over Fox. And when I saw he was from Arizona, I was like, hey, let me look at this guy. And it's like, boom. So, and obviously we have Sinema and we have Mark Kelly and Ducey, and Kerry Lake will probably end up being our next governor or whatever. But the representative thing is hard, man, because one, that shit changes all the time. Your districts change. You got gerrymandering and all that other stuff. And it's funny because even with I've been saying this with Mark Kelly, man, I don't see a whole lot that are, and I know there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, but I try to stay informed with this stuff, but I just don't see a whole lot that even Andy Biggs, who's a Republican, I don't see a whole lot of what they do for us on this local level here, or even at the federal level. We just, we don't see him out here. I definitely don't see the meet and greets and and again, I know he's up at the legislature doing whatever, but I don't necessarily see the direct impact, from our representatives, at least out here where I'm at.
Okay, so you're both good Americans. Congratulations. Now we'll move on
according to Josh, I should be deported, but that's all right. Whatever.
Do you know the Constitution? Okay, so we'll ask just two of these, and we'll end on the quasi Second Amendment one. But this is a good one. I liked this question. And I'll tell you, I did not know the answer right off the top. Maybe you guys do. And this time, I guess we'll go to Roger first and then Josh. So question. When a high school requires its students to perform mandatory community service, doesn't that violate the 13th Amendment's prohibition against involuntary servitude? I can repeat it if you want.
Yeah, repeat it for me.
Okay, one more time. When a high school requires its students to perform mandatory community service, doesn't that violate the 13th Amendment's prohibition against involuntary servitude?
No. And mainly because it's actually authorized in the 13th Amendment as punishment. Just saying.
Okay. Josh?
I don't think it does. There was a case in the 80s. I want to say it was in California where this came up, and they came back. I don't know if it made it all the way to the Supreme Court or not. It may have, but they came back and said no, that it does not violate the 13th Amendment and the involuntary servitude clause.
Well done. Well done. Here's the answer. No. The Supreme Court considered this matter in Steyer versus Bethlehem Area School District in 1993 and concluded that a high school community service requirement does not constitute involuntary servitude. A growing number of school districts thereafter added community service to their graduation requirements. I think community service is the operative term there. And what is community service? Because if a high school said, hey, you've got to scoop the poop off of the principal's lawn, and that's going to be your community service. I think it would be important to define community service in that case.
Let me ask you this:
agree with that?
Why is the issue involuntary servitude or slavery? So the 13th Amendment: neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, which you can make that argument, legal system, whatever, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Congress shall have the power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. That tells me that it's
crime. You're talking about it's not a crime to, well, that's implying a crime. I mean, this is like a community service requirement to graduate. So,
without just making that as part of the
yeah.
I'm looking at it as a punishment piece.
No, dude, you got to take Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 to graduate.
Yeah, but going to high school is a form of punishment. At least it was for me. Good God.
I mean, man, I had fun in high school. I had a good time.
I thought that was a good question, though. It's interesting, and this whole deck is stacked with stuff like this. So here we go. This was going to Josh. Okay, this is a good one. and you may not know this. I didn't know the exact reason. So just maybe you could address it. Why did the Supreme Court strike down a federal law creating gun-free school zones? I'll repeat. Why did the Supreme Court strike down a federal law creating gun-free school zones? Any idea at all?
Man, that's a good one, and I don't know. Wait,
This is
so
good. You're gonna like it. You're gonna like it.
yeah, no, it's So I remember the case. It was early
Really?
90s. It was early
Wow,
90s.
dude. Mid-90s.
Mid 90s. Okay, and it was. I'm gonna sound racist here. It was Lopez, I believe. It
How
came
do you
back
know
with
that,
something-
dude? This guy, Josh, is the
Good on you, man.
constitutional
Good on
man,
you.
dude. Good job, Josh.
It came back. I
Damn.
forget. I forget the nuances of it, but it had something. It was crazy because it had something to do. They weaved the Commerce Clause into it somehow, and I don't remember how they did it. But it was like, what? It was like, you guys got
Okay,
that?
stop. I'm calling bullshit. Josh, you must have seen me waving it around earlier, and you looked it up. There is no way you know this, dude. How, Josh? You sit there reading like old, law journals and stuff. How do you know this stuff?
So dude, so we're talking.
Dude.
Okay, so we're talking about the Second Amendment. I'm a little passionate about the Second Amendment, and I honestly didn't learn that until the Supreme Court, the Heller case. And when the Heller case was before the Supreme Court, man, I dug into the Second Amendment cases, going back for a ways. And so folks will be a little surprised at it, but go back to the civil rights movement and the Black Panthers, and what the Black Panthers did for gun rights in the United States. People would be surprised. So what's the answer?
Roger, anything to add, or you want me to go ahead?
No,
and
I did not. I would not have tied it to the Commerce Clause, and I was doing some quick, gurgling as he was talking. And yeah, he's spot on, man. I would not have made those connections at all.
It was some gymnastics how they did it, but I can't remember exactly how they did it.
Well, they were basically talking about how, with the creation of the weapon, that there's no way to say that. Basically, it's all traveled interstate commerce. So you can't just basically restrict it to this point in time at this one location when it's already happened, right? It's already happened since the weapon was created, yada yada yada. And just quick gurgling, it was like the first time in 100 years they said they actually enforced any type of legislation based on the Commerce Clause, which is fucking nuts.
That's crazy. So I'll read the question one more time. Why did the Supreme Court strike down a federal law creating gun-free school zones? And the answer is, it's freaking Josh, man. The Supreme Court ruled in United States versus Lopez, 1995, that Congress could not use the Commerce Clause, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3, to enact laws prohibiting guns in school zones. By a 5-4 vote, 5-4, the justices concluded that decisions about school safety must be left to the general police power of each state government. The act in question was later amended, and several related cases have since reached federal circuit court. So, man, Josh, the test is not are you a great constitutional scholar? It's are you a great American? Because, man, you were spot on that one.
I'll get the next one wrong.
Well,
do you want another one?
Dude, we got plenty of time.
Read a couple of them.
Yeah,
because what's interesting is because we've all read, through the Constitution, this and that, but to actually go back and you start reading specific amendments again, and you start looking at the verbiage and the wording. I mean,
well,
there are a lot of rights out there.
That and giving some, the vignettes really, anybody can read through the Constitution and you can memorize Article 1, Article 2 and stuff, what's in there. But I like the Constitution one because that's really like, okay, why is this a law? How did it become this way? Or, what happened in this, or in this case and this stuff that's the good stuff because that's what you got to be able to reference. If you're ever questioned on it, in person, social, whatever like that, you can throw that out there, man. And that's what really grabs people's attention. They're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to mess with this person because they know their shit.
Here's a good one.
These are good.
I got a couple good ones, decent ones here. So Roger, and you guys could be asking me this, and I get the opportunity to kind of read these because I see it and I'm like, well, what would I say there? So there's no shame in like not saying it exactly what the answer is, because I definitely couldn't do it. So question, is there a constitutional right to privacy?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. I think you're talking about the Fourth Amendment falls within there to an extent. I don't know off the top of my head with Supreme Court rulings, but there, especially in our line of work, and again, it's not one-to-one applicable, but there is an expectation of privacy. And when you have to get search warrants and this and that, that's usually what it comes down to is like, is there a citizen's right to the expectation of privacy? And if there is, then generally speaking, you have to get a warrant, which obviously falls under, was it the Fourth Amendment? Otherwise, if you're out in public place, that's why they can watch you and take pictures or whatever.
So, yes, I agree. Roger gave a good answer, but there's also a couple of other examples. And so there's another example in the First Amendment of privacy, a right to privacy. And then again, and you spoke on the third and the fourth. The First Amendment, your, freedom of religion, right? And you have the choice to keep that private. You don't have to advertise that. And then of course, the Third Amendment, you have a right of privacy within your home. And then the Fourth Amendment, you have a right to privacy of your person against unreasonable search and seizures. And that's why the stop and frisk law in New York with Giuliani was so controversial.
And just so the audience knows, I did not share any of these before the show with Josh or Roger, so they are really this smart. So the question was, is there a constitutional right to privacy? And the mealy-mouthed lawyer response, you have to listen to the whole thing. The Constitution does not specifically mention privacy, but the Ninth Amendment states that the rights of the people are not limited to those specifically enumerated in the Constitution. In Griswold versus Connecticut, 1965, the Supreme Court found that various aspects of privacy are a common theme found in the First, Third, and Fourth Amendments. So good job, guys. I think you pretty much covered that, but yeah, it's a good one, right?
Yeah.
Good answer. So Josh, to you, does the Constitution permit the death penalty?
I don't know. I'm going to say no. The Constitution does not, but the states. Well, no.
I guess let me ask you this. Maybe this will help you. Is the death penalty cruel and unusual punishment? I guess it hinges on that, right?
Is it cruel and unusual punishment? I mean, that's really ambiguous. Cruel and unusual. I mean, that's very ambiguous. What's cruel?
Those words are in the Constitution.
Yes, but they're ambiguous. So, does the Constitution allow the death penalty? Yeah, because I mean, they do. I mean, you go back and look. The penalty for treason was what? Right? It was death. So yes, it does.
Roger?
I guess, and again, this would go back to probably your answer. Does it allow it versus does it prohibit it? I don't think it prohibits it. But then, like Josh just mentioned with treason, because it's left up to the states, right? I mean, the states decide whether they have it. I think Arizona, we just, sentenced or actually carried out the execution. I don't know whether they did it by gas or whatever. I think the first person in 80 years or whatever. So I'd have to look at the language. I don't know that it's actually, they say, yeah, you can, as opposed to, no, they don't prohibit it. And therefore under the 10th Amendment, it falls under the states.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's, you'd have to go back and,
but I mean, the government, the military can do it, right, Josh? I mean, the military has a death penalty.
Yeah. I mean, they hung people at Fort Leavenworth, all the time, but you got to go back and look, right? Because you can't deprive somebody, I forget which amendment, the 5th or 14th. You can't deprive somebody of life, liberty, without undue process. And so you have, without due process. So you've got if you have due process, which is obviously mandated under the Constitution, can you do it? Well, yeah, man, I'd have to really dig in to get the wording right, but I'm going to say yes. Final answer.
Well, yeah, okay. Because the original question is, does the Constitution permit the death penalty? And the answer is what they wrote is, and it makes sense. Yes, although the subject is open to debate. The Eighth Amendment prohibits cruel and unusual punishment, which includes penalties that are too harsh for the crime. Eighth Amendment challenges to the death penalty have focused on whether certain criminal offenders, such as juveniles or mentally impaired individuals, should be subject to a sentence of death, as well as other death sentences that have been decided fairly or have been tainted by racial bias. So, yeah, it definitely permits it, but the operative thing is, well, is it cruel and unusual punishment? And those are, I think, honestly, we could probably do a whole episode on the death penalty because it is a kind of a fascinating subject. So this one's kind of a process question. So whoever thinks they have the answer, which can answer first. So, how can a federal judge declare a state law unconstitutional? Jeopardy music playing.
How can a federal judge declare a state law unconstitutional because it violates one of the amendments or one of the articles of the Constitution?
Okay. Yeah, basically.
Right, like under the 14th Amendment, under the 9th Amendment, under the 5th, you're seeing it every day with like the abortion stuff, the death penalty. You're seeing, so you can challenge against anyone, and that's kind of not as specific, but that is what progressives are using the 14th and the 9th Amendment overarching to basically any red state, any Republican state with these abortion laws, voting rights, and this and that. That's basically what the basis of their challenge is, that it violates the 14th Amendment, violates the 9th Amendment, what have you.
Right. It's Article 6 states that the Constitution is a supreme law. If a state law conflicts with a federal law must prevail. It's referred to as the supremacy clause.
The supremacy
clause,
right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, I agree with Roger, and then obviously what you just read. Yeah, on the federal law wins if they're in direct conflict.
And the Ninth Amendment, you brought this up, Luke, but it's pretty interesting because, again, it's one of those that we've all read it, but then you go back and you actually look at it, with the vignettes or whatever. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And it kind of comes up, especially with the Supreme Court hearing, and you start talking about enumerated rights versus those that aren't necessarily specifically mentioned, and how far does that carry? And some of those on the left mean, they take that hey, basically the Supreme Court can legislate from the bench because you just declare it an unenumerated right. And so basically you can make anything fall under the protections of the Constitution, regardless of what it is, in a federal power versus state. Just a comment.
It's a good point, but I found a really good question here, and I'm gonna set it up. I'm gonna tee this question up. This is a good one. Okay, who's real quick, Roger? Who's your least favorite member of Congress?
Pelosi, and then on the Senate side would it be Schumer?
Okay, so Chuck Schumer. I think it's safe to say. Josh is going to work this Second Amendment thing in here eventually. Okay, so Josh, would you agree that Chuck Schumer is disliked within the Cup, universally disliked within the Cup hosts?
100%.
Okay, so let's say that Chuck Schumer is on the floor of the Senate in a debate about a bill or whatever that they're going to try to pass, and he gets up there and he says, "I've listened to Culper's Canteen Cup. Josh, Roger, and Luke are horrible human beings. In fact, they actually robbed a bank last week, dressed as ex-presidents. I heard that they surf, but they probably don't surf because they're all three unathletic pieces of garbage. They served in the military, all three of them, and I happen to know that they all three got multiple Article 15s. They were horrible. Roger was kicked out at the rank of E7. Josh failed warrant officer school, and Luke was just a horrible soldier all around." Now that last part is the only true part of that statement. So if he got up there and said that, would it be possible for us to sue Chuck Schumer for libel or slander?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know because he's using his official position in the within the government to do that. I don't know. I'd have to, man. I'd have to dig into that one. I, because I remember, obviously, it's like when you were on active duty, like you couldn't sue the federal government yourself, for really anything. And but as civilians, man, I don't know. That's a good one.
Roger?
I'd say you can, based on that vignette, where there are very specific errors, omissions, and just inaccurate information. But at the same time, I mean, Congress does it all the time. So I do think there are, and I don't know off the top of my head, there are some rules where basically whatever they say on the floor during the speech, whatever. I mean, they can get away with murder, pretty much. I mean, just short of it. But I would think as a private citizen, if I could show some damages and some harm that came to me over inaccurate statements, yeah, absolutely, I could sue.
I would have given the same answer you just gave, and I'm sure the example I came up with, a little vignette, is pretty extreme. So who knows? But this is I would have given the same answer as you, Roger. But this is the official answer. The question is it possible to sue a member of Congress for libel or slander? And the answer is not for anything said in debate in the Senate or House. That's why I said he said it during a debate. The speech and debate clause of Article 1, Section 6 protects anything they might say to uphold the right of Congress to engage freely in debate. However, the Supreme Court ruled in Hutchison versus Proxmire in 1979 that the clause protects members only in actions that are essential to the legislative process. So it would depend on how he said and what the context is of why he said it, not what they publish in their newsletters and in other forums. So, I mean, that's an interesting one. And no wonder these debates get so ridiculous, because they're just like, well, as long as I can tie it to whatever legislative process we're talking about, I can say anything I want about anybody. So I think, man, that's very interesting. So Josh is going to put me on the spot now. Josh does not have a card in front of him. So, Josh, what's your question for me and Roger?
All right, so let me frame this first. I don't have an answer for this. This is a philosophical question, and I'm sure it'll dovetail into into a Donnybrook fairly quick. Because we only have we're getting short on time. Yeah, Luke is going to absolutely destroy his Trump damn it doll on this one. So Luke, for you, what did the founders mean by a well-regulated militia as it pertains to the Second Amendment? and go.
Kyle Rittenhouse. Hey man, I'm not even joking. I mean, we all three had a really cool text discussion a few months ago. I think it was during the Rittenhouse trials, right near the end. And this is always a great topic of discussion between the three of us, is like, what's a well-regulated militia? Josh is always shall not be infringed. And we have these great discussions. What we were arguing with each other through text, and that's never a good idea. So we started doing little voice recordings and sending them to each other. And it's a shame that those are automatically, deleted from the record there, because I think they're just stored in RAM, and there's a specific time on your iPhone at least. And we determined that, boy, this is a really good question, that I think all three of us tacitly agreed that what Kyle Rittenhouse was doing that particular day, he was well armed, number one. We said he took an effort to train himself on how to use the weapon, how to help his fellow man with first aid, and he was there to maintain order in a lawless type environment. So we agreed he was a one-man militia that night. I think we kind of agreed on that. At least that's my recollection of it. So you take the Kyle Rittenhouse as an example of what a well-regulated militia could be or is, maintaining order in a local type setting where there's the police and anything provided by the state or federal has just hands off. We're not going to do anything. It's up to the locals to defend themselves and have a have a free state of being, for instance. So I believe that's kind of what, not kind of, I believe that's what the founding fathers meant by well-regulated militia. To answer your question, is, any sort of effort to arm, train, and regulate, even at the single person level, to secure a free state in the absence of any sort of, in the face of tyranny. And in that case, it was the tyranny of the mob. So that's kind of my answer, man. We could, you asked that great question toward the end of an episode, and I would love to delve into this deeper, because that Kyle Rittenhouse is a real easy answer, for me anyway. But it's a bit more complicated than that. So Roger, I mean, what do you think about Josh's question?
No, I think you're spot on. I think you hit on the head. I mean, obviously, and for those, the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, comma, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, shall not be infringed. And so when you look at the definition of a well-regulated militia, and then you got to look at the context of the times, right? Why it was written, obviously to keep the sovereignty of the states against a tyrannical government. You don't necessarily have the population back then that you do now, nor the resources. So you looked at private citizens having to own their own weapons, because that's how they defended themselves. That's how they defended, the sovereignty of their state or their community or what have you. So it's, I don't think I would disagree with anything that you said there. It's, you look at, I mean, people can sit there and argue what does well-regulated mean? Well, that's the point, right? It's all subjective. Well-regulated, and then you can argue the point of size. Is a one person carrying an AR-15, is that considered a militia? But I think you gave a great example, Kyle Rittenhouse, that the guy was trained, permitted, has his weapon, he's gone, the extra steps. And so in my mind, it might be a one person, which it wasn't one person. Even in his case, it was several, right? The store owner had several folks come down there. But if you just looked at him as an individual, I'd say, absolutely. And when you look at the times and the context of that, that's what it was. It was a lot of individuals. And then those individuals were brought together in a community or in a neighborhood or a town or whatever to bring their own weapons to ensure the sovereignty of their community and of their state against a tyrannical government.
Yeah, no, I think both answers are spot on. And that, rooftop Koreans back in, in LA during the during the Rodney King riots, everybody showed up and, had some kit with them. Yeah, no, and it is toward the end of the episode. We're not going to be able to really do a deep dive into this. But with Luke's answer, a one person showed up and had the armament that was necessary to meet the level of force, the threat that was present. So, that's for more discussion on, okay, so we agree that one person can be considered a militia, a well-regulated militia. All right. So what should they be able to own and have to meet the level of threat, whether that threat is from a mob, whether that threat is from a state, a state-controlled military entity or the federal military? What should citizens
look at Ukraine,
be allowed
right?
to own, and what should not citizens be allowed to own? Yeah, no, look at Ukraine. I mean,
why are we having to send over stuff, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, the founders, like you said, when they wrote this, I mean, there were privateers. Privateers had cannon. They had their own cannon, right? They were issued letters of marque, and told to, let's, go do great things for God and country. So definitely a lot to go on the Second Amendment piece, but I really wanted to throw that out there because we've talked about it, in text messages, and they've gotten animated and stuff. But now we're out there, we're on the record.
And I think that the Kenosha stuff was, I think it clarified a lot of stuff in my mind, because we go back and forth, and we always go to the extremes on militia. Well, there's always extremes. It's like, well, the federal government all of a sudden decides, we're going to crush the people, or any dissent. And it's like, okay, what do you need for that? And it's like, oh, well, it's Red Dawn, except with Chinese, what's a militia, how well regulated. And then, Kenosha kind of focused everything down on, hey, that was a state of tyranny. Like we said, tyranny from the mob. now what are we talking about with militia? And it kind of clarified, and I think really boiled down all three of our arguments. It's like, okay, now we can start here, like Josh just said, we can start here at the baseline, and all three agree that what we've just been talking about. I guess I'm just talking nonsense, talking trash. But Roger and Josh, I threw y'all a lot of questions today. Roger, I didn't mean to question your citizenship or loyalty to the United States.
Whatever.
But man, I really, especially with those Constitution questions, man, I mean, y'all were on point with that and did a lot better than I would have if I was put on the spot. So kudos to you guys. Throw it to Roger to close out. I'm just giving one more shout out to Carlton Zeus. Y'all throw a prayer my way for walking by the more violent and extreme homeless people that are now coming out of the woodwork in DC. Because man, dude, it is bad. And actually, I'll throw it to Josh for one more shout out, and then Roger can close us out.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Luke. Real quick, want to give a shout out to my mother-in-law. Just want to let you know that we love you, and you're never far from our thoughts.
Yeah, and that goes the same for for obviously my Luke and myself. A couple little notes that we didn't get a chance to touch on because man, I've had like all week I've been building up because Luke's been gone. I've been like typing this stuff out. Right now you see the left. They're attacking big oil companies, right? Attacking Exxon Mobil, Chevron, BP, ConocoPhillips. Talking about the massive amount of revenue they have and profits and this and that. And we've talked about this a little bit, but what I would say is this: corporate profits are up big now, right? They were down 50% a year ago. So when you look year over year, what the profits that they're bringing in right now versus what they lost a year ago, it's almost a 1-for-1 swap. So now all of a sudden everybody's going after the gas stations and big corporate America. And I think what you're starting to see, and we'll get into this, especially as we get closer to election season, you're starting to see, and not starting, it's been going on, the left trying to deflect the blame, because at the end of the day, it comes down to you have a democratically controlled Congress, you have a democratically controlled White House, and they are blind to see that it's their own policies that have taken us to where we're at now. And it's kind of shocking to me because when you look at the war in Ukraine, when you look at gas prices, when you look at inflation, Josh and I go back and forth on inflation, poking each other a lot, but inflation has been no big secret. And the Fed wants to get involved now. Like, what took you so long? Like, everybody saw this coming. Like, what took you so long? And it just goes back to the whole, the whole narrative of this presidency. It's just everything is reactive and everything is late. You can go back as early as or as recent as Ukraine and the sanctions and this and that, but everything they do is reactive and late. And I think Obama's old economic advisor actually talked about, hey, we're looking at stagflation. I always pick with Josh a little bit because I try to use these little technicalities with him. Going into a recession, it's coming. Again, I pick on him and give him shit, but it's coming. The recession is coming. You're starting to see a little bit in the housing market, right? You're starting to see that creep a little bit. Interest rates are up. Inflation's obviously where it's at and climbing through the roof. Gas and fuels where it's at. I got a buddy who works in the agricultural market. He's a distributor, I believe, on that side of the house. And I asked him, I said, hey, man, I said, come on, dude. Like, where are we really at with this? And he's like, you have no idea how bad this is. He goes, you have no idea how bad it is because they're not looking at all of the inputs that are going up. And so we look at one isolated piece. We were talking about potash, fertilizer, and fuel and this and that. And he's like, hey, man, everybody looks at one or two pieces. He goes, when you look at the agriculture industry, and it's not just them, it's going to be any of them, any major industry, there are several inputs that go into it. So when you talk about inflation across the board going up, hey, when the price of fuel has doubled or tripled, affects your farms, right? When the cost of labor has gone up, affects your employees, affects your labor market, affects your farms, right? So it's everything. When you look at federal regulations they have to meet, I mean, all those inputs. So, strap yourself in. I can't wait. I think here in the near future, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the, economy and maybe lay some lines in the sand there, draw some lines in the sand there over when we actually are going to hit a recession or what have you. But more to follow on that. Hey, thanks to all of our listeners out there, especially, those viewers on YouTube, those on whatever podcast platform that they're listening to us on. Definitely head over to our website, www.culperscanteencup.com. We do try to put some blogs out there, some of that stuff we reference on here, and I think some of them are pretty well thought out, especially, Luke does his quick takes every now and then. Pretty good. And I tell you, when you see a lot of that stuff, it's almost like, man, these guys have a crystal ball. But I believe our listeners out there, they all see it, right? They see it. They know what's going on. They know what's happening. And I'm starting to become a fan of, one of Luke's favorite terms with gaslighting, because that is exactly what you're seeing going on right now. Hey, don't believe what you're seeing. Don't believe what you're experiencing. Hey, it just cost me $150 to fill up my truck yesterday, and I still had 3 gallons to go. The gas pump shut off. So it's like, Josh is typing right now that the sky is green. Hey, don't believe everything that you're experiencing and seeing. I'm going to tell you what's going on. And that's what you need to believe. So, that is the epitome of gaslighting. But thanks again to all of our listeners out there. Big shout out to Carlton Zeus again. And hey, Canteeners, stay healthy and keep your canteen cups tightly secured.